Thanksgiving had barely begun when Iris leaned back in her chair, twirled her wine, and said loud enough for the whole table to catch it. Still single. Lotus. At 34, that's rough. No whisper, no hesitation. A clean, deliberate strike. Mom froze. Dad stared at his plate. No one defended me again. I set my fork down, feeling years of swallowed hurt settle into something sharper. I wouldn't worry about me, I said. I'm married. The room went silent. Even the old hallway clock seemed to stop. They didn't know it yet, but that one sentence was about to tear our family wide open. I grew up in that house. Same creaking floors, same framed photos lining the hallway, same pine-scented candles. My mother lit every holiday, as if smell alone could convince people we were a picture-perfect family. But perfection only works from a distance. Once you got close, you could see the cracks, the way conversations always tilted toward Iris, the way Dad shrank whenever conflict approached, the way Mom's eyes softened only when her younger daughter walked into the room. I used to think I imagined it. Kids tell themselves stories to survive the imbalance. But somewhere between my 20s and my 30s, the pattern sharpened. Every milestone of mine was quietly minimized, while every milestone of Iris's became a family production. When Mom and Dad forgot my college graduation because Iris had a can't-miss sorority event, they insisted it was an unfortunate overlap. When they skipped my birthday dinner 2 years in a row because Iris was touring wedding venues, "You know how important this is for her," Mom had said, like my existence was an optional update. When I moved to Seattle and bought my condo without help, I sent photos. They never asked how it felt to do that alone. The truth was, they didn't ask much about my life at all. And yet every holiday I still made the drive home. 4 hours each way. I brought pies, flowers, gifts. I tried. Maybe too hard. Evan used to tease me gently about it. You don't have to earn a place that should already be yours. I'd smile like it didn't hurt, like I didn't wonder deep down if maybe I did. Walking into the house that afternoon, I felt the familiar tightening in my chest. The entryway looked the same as always, the heavy mirror Mom adored, the coat rack leaning a little to the left, the faded rug Iris ruined in high school, and somehow never got blamed for. But I wasn't the same. Something in me had shifted long before Thanksgiving, some quiet part that stopped hoping they'd notice I wasn't okay. When I stepped into the kitchen, Mom hugged me with one arm while stirring gravy with the other. "Lotus, sweetheart, you made it," she said, voice light but distracted. No question about my drive, my work, my life. Her next sentence was already about Iris's honeymoon plans. Dad gave me a tired smile over a pot of mashed potatoes. I scanned the room. Iris wasn't there yet, but her presence was. Photos from her wedding, big white dress, expansive venue. Her beaming next to Colin covered the fridge like it was a shrine. My own wedding photo, not a single one, not even a printout. My stomach knotted. 8 months. 8 months since I'd mailed those invitations, tracked them, called, emailed, checked in. 8 months of silence from all of them. Mom finally glanced at me. "You did bring the cranberry sauce, right?" "Of course. That was my role, show up, contribute, stay quiet." I set the dish down and realized something unsettling. This was the first holiday where I wasn't sure why I'd come habit maybe, or the tiny hope that this time might be different. But deep down, I already knew the truth. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. The tension started before dinner even hit the table. Iris breezed in 20 minutes late, her heels clicking across the hardwood like she owned every step. She kissed Mom on the cheek, hugged Dad like she hadn't seen him in years, then gave me a quick glance, barely a nod, like I was a distant coworker she couldn't fully place. "Traffic was insane," she announced, shrugging off her coat. "Colin dropped me off so he could park. Partners don't get holidays off, you know." Mom's eyes glowed with pride, the kind she reserved only for Iris. That's what happens when you marry someone successful. The words weren't aimed directly at me, but they hit just fine. We moved toward the dining room, and I heard Iris whisper something under her breath, soft enough to hide, sharp enough to cut. Mom laughed, quick and brittle. Dad cleared his throat in that familiar way, the one that meant he'd heard something he wouldn't address. By the time we sat down, the hierarchy was already set, Iris front and center me as background noise. It was a role I had played my entire life, spoken over, brushed aside, expected to absorb whatever casual cruelty slipped out under the table. But something was different in me this year. The words didn't sink into the same old place. They hovered unsettled, like they were looking for somewhere new to land. Mom launched into a fresh recap of Iris's wedding. She never tired of reliving it. The venue had a wait list, but Iris found a way. And the flowers, oh Lotus, you should have seen them, breathtaking. I had seen them twice, online, alone. Then Iris smirked, swirling her wine. Yeah, it was perfect. Everything went exactly the way it should. Honestly, I don't know how we'd top it. A beat. Not that anyone's competing. My jaw tightened. It was always like this. Every achievement of hers elevated, every part of me minimized. Flashbacks hit me in quick cuts, Mom leaving my 8th grade recital early to pick up Iris from practice. Dad missing my scholarship dinner because Iris needed help with a project. Birthdays, graduations, milestones, all swallowed by Iris's orbit. And the worst part, I used to excuse it. I used to believe that maybe they didn't mean it. But tonight, watching Iris's smile sharpen each time our parents laughed, I felt the truth settle. She wasn't careless. She was deliberate. And as she clinked her glass eyes glittering with the comfort of being untouchable, I knew she was heading somewhere. A jab was coming, and this time I wasn't the same girl who would just swallow it. Dinner should have been ordinary, dry turkey, overcooked beans, Mom fussing with the gravy like she could fix the entire family by whisking harder. But the air had weight to it, a heaviness that made every clink of silverware sound louder than it should. I sat at my old spot across from Iris, the seat I'd taken my whole life, the seat where I learned to make myself smaller. Colin finally arrived and slipped into the chair beside her. He gave me a polite smile, the type people offer when they don't know whether to greet you or ignore you. Iris leaned into him immediately. Her voice bright and theatrical, an audience of 4 was enough for her to perform. As plates were passed around, Mom kept steering the conversation back to Iris, her honeymoon stories, her new place, her holiday travel plans. Dad nodded along, occasionally adding a quiet, like he couldn't risk choosing the wrong moment to speak. Then Iris turned her attention to me. So she said casually, spearing a piece of turkey, "Lotus." Her tone stretched. My name sweetened it until it turned sour. At 34, still being single, is that a choice now? Mom inhaled sharply. Colin put down his fork. Even Dad looked up. I felt the comment hit, but not the way she intended. It struck something solid this time, something long past boiling. I wiped my fingers on the napkin and looked at her fully. That's interesting, I said softly. Why do you assume I'm single? Iris blinked, thrown off for a second. Well, are you not? The room paused, waiting. I heard the clock in the hallway ticking unevenly like it wasn't sure it wanted to keep going. I set my napkin down. I'm married. Silence. Complete paralyzing silence. Mom's spoon froze midair. Dad's jaw tensed. Colin stared at Iris like waiting for direction. But Iris, she laughed. A quick patronizing sound. Right, married, sure. To who I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. What mattered wasn't her disbelief, it was that I had finally said it out loud, in the one place where they'd never expected me to have anything worth announcing. Mom leaned forward, her voice low. Lotus, darling, if you were married, you would have told us. I did, I replied. No, honey, you didn't. I did, I repeated calmer this time. 8 months ago. Their faces fell in sequence confusion. First, then denial, then something sharper, fear. Iris scoffed, masking her tightening shoulders. Come on, we never got anything. Not an invite, not a call, nothing. I held her gaze. You didn't get them because someone made sure you wouldn't. Her smirk twitched. Excuse me? Mom's voice trembled. What are you implying, Lotus? I didn't answer her either. Instead, I reached for my phone, sliding it slowly onto the table like placing a card in the middle of a poker game. Iris's hand went rigid around her wine glass. She knew something was coming, maybe not what, but enough to recognize the shift in power. Dad swallowed hard. Lotus, what are you talking about? I tapped the screen and opened the first file. And when the light from the phone reflected off the silver of the tableware, the room seemed to tilt like the entire house leaned in to listen. I'm talking about the invitations, I said, the ones I mailed. The ones that were signed for, the ones that never made it to anyone but her. I didn't point at Iris. I didn't have to. Every eye at the table landed on her automatically. Her lips parted, her shoulders stiffened, her mask perfect for so long finally cracked. And I hadn't even shown them the proof yet. I didn't rush. I let the silence wrap around the table, thick and unmoving, while Iris's fingers tightened around her glass like she could squeeze the truth back into the stem. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "Nobody got anything from you, Lotus. If you were actually married, which I doubt you would have made sure we knew." I turned the phone so everyone could see the screen. I did make sure. The first record was simple. A tracking history. 5 envelopes, 5 destinations. Delivered, signed for, all on the same morning. Dad leaned closer, squinting. Signed. By who? I zoomed in. The signature wasn't just familiar, it was unmistakable. A looping eye that trailed into a tight scribble. Iris's signature. I watched the color drain from her face before she forced a laugh that didn't belong in her throat. "Anyone can sign for mail, Lotus. Delivery people mess things up all the time." "They didn't," I said, "because I checked. Twice. And the carrier confirmed it was received at this house." Mom's eyes flinched at the word confirmed, as if it poked through whatever denial she wanted to hold on to. Dad's breathing grew shallow. Colin glanced between them all like he'd suddenly been dropped into a conversation he didn't understand. I swiped to the next screen. "Email activity logs." "Here," I said. "The electronic invitations. They were opened from this house's IP, then deleted." Mom clasped her hands. "Maybe your father opened it by accident." "I didn't," Dad said abruptly, voice cracking. "I don't even check that inbox." That alone was a revelation. Dad rarely contradicted Mom and almost never in front of company. Mom's gaze darted to Iris. "Sweetheart, do you know anything about this?" Iris straightened her spine. "No," she said flatly. A single syllable coated in ice. But her eyes, those betrayed her. I wasn't finished. I opened the call log next. I called on May 4th, and May 11th, and May 18th, 20th, 25th. I listed them slowly, letting each date settle like pebbles, dropped one by one into a well. Voicemails, texts, even a message in the family group chat. Dad frowned. "Group chat." "I'm not in a group chat with you," Mom said. "You were," I replied, "until someone removed me." That landed hard. Even Colin shifted. "Iris," Mom whispered. Iris slammed her palms onto the table so suddenly the silverware rattled. "Why are you attacking me because you didn't get the attention you wanted? Because your life isn't as exciting as mine?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. The deflection, the arrogance, the certainty that if she refused responsibility loudly enough, everyone else would fall in line to protect her. "I'm attacking you," I asked, voice calm. "You're the one who made sure my wedding happened without my family." Her jaw twitched. "I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did," I said. "You signed for the mail. You opened the emails. You deleted them. And you let me think for 8 months that I meant that little to all of you." Mom gasped softly. Dad closed his eyes. And Iris, she broke. Not all at once, but in tiny fractures I could finally see. "You're so dramatic," she snapped. "You always have been. You take everything personally. I got married," I said, "and none of you came." That stopped her. Stopped all of them. Dad swallowed. "Lotus, why didn't you call again? Or come in person if it mattered that much?" A spark of old pain lit inside me, but I didn't raise my voice. "I did call, over and over. I sent reminders. I begged. I gestured to the logs. I chased the people who should have been chasing me." Mom pressed a napkin to her lips like she could blot out the truth. We had no idea." Her voice wavered at the edges, the first crack in the story she wanted to believe. But Iris, she wasn't done. "Maybe," she said quietly, "maybe the invitations weren't meant to be seen." The words fell like acid. Mom stared at her. "What does that mean?" Iris's eyes flickered with something between panic and pride. "It means she whispered that it wasn't a big deal. Her little beach wedding. 20 people. Come on." I wasn't going to let her ruin the momentum before my wedding. Dad froze. Mom's hand slipped from her mouth. Colin blinked like he'd never truly seen his wife before. "You threw them away?" Dad asked, voice trembling. "I didn't throw them away," she snapped. I just kept them from distracting everyone. I was getting married. It was supposed to be my year, and mine didn't count. I asked quietly. She looked right at me, eyes glossy, jaw tight. No, she said. It should have hurt more. Maybe once it would have destroyed me, but in that moment, it clarified everything. I see, I whispered. Mom turned to Iris, voice sharp for the first time in years. How could you? Iris recoiled. Don't make me the villain. Lotus has always been jealous. That was it. The moment I felt something inside me settle with absolute clarity. I'm not jealous of you, I said. I never have been. I'm hurt. And I'm done pretending it doesn't matter. I stood. My chair scraped against the tile. A small final sound that sliced through the room. Where are you going? Mom asked, almost panicked. Away, I said. Away from a table where I've been invisible my entire life. Dad rose, halfway reaching out. Lotus, wait. I shook my head. I spent 8 months waiting. I'm finished. As I turned toward the front door, Iris spoke again, raw, shaky. You ruined Thanksgiving. No, I said softly. You ruined my wedding. This is just the truth catching up to you. The hallway felt colder than the dining room, like the house itself didn't want me to leave. But I did. I walked past the mirror, past the photos, past the place where every version of me had once tried to belong. And when I stepped outside, the night air hit my skin with something that felt like freedom. Behind me, through the window, I saw them frozen, stunned, staring at the empty chair where I'd sat for decades. For the first time, they had to look at the space I left behind. I drove the entire way back to Seattle in silence, the road stretching out like a clean line between who I had been and who I wasn't willing to be anymore. When I walked into our apartment, Evan didn't ask questions. He just wrapped his arms around me, grounding me in a way my own family never had. It finally happened, I said into his shoulder. He nodded like he'd been waiting for this moment. And you finally said what needed to be said. The days after were strangely quiet. Dad called brief, cautious conversations, but real ones. He didn't defend, Iris didn't rewrite anything. He just listened. It was new, unsteady, but new. Iris emailed. A long, apologetic message that sounded like therapy had pressed honesty out of her. I read it but didn't reply. Healing wasn't a door I could walk through on command. Mom stayed silent, and for once, her silence didn't tear me apart. It clarified things. Evan's family invited us over for their Thanksgiving the next day. Laughter filled the house. People asked about my work, my life. They saw me. And as I sat at their table, I realized something almost frighteningly simple. This felt like home. In the weeks that followed, the ache softened into something I could finally set down. Not forgiveness, not yet, but clarity. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was someone who chose her own peace, her own family, her own life. And that choice felt steadier than anything I'd ever begged my parents for. If you've ever had to walk away to protect your heart, you're not alone. Tell me where you're listening from and share your story below. And if this one stayed with you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next.